I think your book launch, well, I think it has two functions. I think it's personal. Of course, it's also promotional. But I think the personal side of it for me was really important. I felt it was important to take the time to sort of mark the occasion and to celebrate it, because as most people know, most aspiring authors know, it's a very long and quite rocky road to get to where to get to your book to publication. There's many points on that road where it would be so easy to stop. And of course we use that word aspiring author, which I don't particularly like, but I think it does reflect your mindset during that period, which is that you can't take anything for granted. You don't really know if this is actually going to work, if this project that you started out with is going to work. And so to sort of get to the end of the process and actually have your book and have it in a bookstore, and to sort of sit down at that moment and say, okay, I have achieved something, all those worries and doubts of, it was time well spent. I think that was quite important, just to kind of stop and mark that.
My first experience with launching my first novel was in 2004, right after the hurricanes came through here then. All our power was out. I was going on my first book tour, my first novel, and I drove to a Barnes & Noble in Palm Beach. They had just gotten the power on an hour earlier. And I walked into the store and I saw a stack of 200 of my novels sitting there with the bookstore manager. And it was she and I who sat there the whole night. Nobody else came in the store, So it was like the worst possible thing that could happen. And for good reason, a hurricane had just come through. But then I started thinking, how do you get people to pay attention? When you go to sit in a Barnes & Noble or a bookstore where people don't know who you are, how do you stand out in the woods? So I decided for that first novel, Bahamarama, I would cook conch fritters, which are a Bahamian specialty, and I happen to make the best conch fritters in the world. And so I got permission from the store. I said, how about if I sit out in the back of your store, I'll bring my butane stove, frying pan, conch, and I'll make conch fritters in the back. And they're like, what? I go, trust me, we'll sell some books. And sure enough, as soon as I started cooking in the back, people started coming up, and they'd get in free conch fritters, and they'd pick up your book, and that would engage them enough to talk. And then they would eat the conch fritters, and they probably felt guilty for getting free food and not buying anything, so they would buy the book. I don't know. So that kind of taught me that you really have to offer something other than just showing a book, having a book launch. You have to have a real party. And so when we launch books for our clients through Story Farm, we think about that same thing. Have a book launch that might be a ticketed event, might cost $50, but for $50 they get a copy of your book, couple of glasses of wine, some food. It's a party. You limit the tickets, say it's a limited ticket event. Automatically people want to be part of it because only certain people can go there. It sounds like fun. $50, I go to a party, I come away with a book that I want to support anyway. That has worked for us. It doesn't have to be a ticketed event, but I think it needs to be a splashy kind of party that gets some media attention, that's certainly Instagrammable and Facebookable and all of that stuff, but that's fun, that's something more than just, hey, my book's out, come buy it. It's like I'm giving you something that kind of goes with this book too, so that you can enjoy it even more. It's a real trick to stand out in the crowd because so many people are publishing books and self-publishing books, and they all want to promote themselves somehow. And so you really have to think about what it all gets down to is, this is a fun business. How do you have fun and convey that, and through drawing people in to have a fun experience, also get them to realize that you've written or published something that's worthy of them.
I was with a major bookstore seller for many, many years, and I was the national events specialist. And I was responsible for booking events, and I invariably found that the authors that actually made it an event, they did so much better. And I found that a lot of the smaller publishers, the ones that had their first book, the excitement from that was the event that was going to be successful. Where I had big name authors, the event wasn't always that successful. So you have to be willing to bring something to the table. And when I say bring something to the table, do more than sit behind a table, but actually get up and introduce yourself, give a talk. Don't read a ton from your book. Don't give it all away. But a lot of times you'll find out the authors that are going to be there want to find out how you got published. They have more interest sometimes than your book. They want to know how you got there. So be prepared to meet your audience's needs. And that's whether you have 2 people there or 200. For my book, Without Grace, I did a book launch. I did a party. I hosted it. I was very fortunate. I'm in New York, so I got to do it in a really incredibly wonderful atmosphere. But you can do it in another place. I did it. It was my hair salon on Long Island. They hosted an event for me because they were so excited, and they came to me and said, "Could we host an event for you?" I'm going to say no. I think not. So it was very exciting that they wanted to do this. So I gave them suggestions of how we could make it. So we had refreshments. I didn't again just sign books. I did a meet and greet. And then when I had my big book launch in the city, I had food, I had wait staff, and you can really go as simple as having punch and cookies to having past hors d'oeuvres. It's really up to you, but what you want to do is try to draw attention. If your book covers has anything to do with animals in it, go to your local pet store and ask them, and this is, most authors wouldn't think to do this, but ask them, when is your slowest time? I would like to bring in some foot traffic. This way they can't really discourage the fact that you're looking at their needs. And so you could say, I would love to set up a table. I'd be more than glad to give a percentage of sales to some Save a Rescue foundation. So you really got to start thinking creatively. You've got a lot to compete against. Try to figure out, let's say your book has a Santa Claus theme. Well, chances are you're going to do better around holiday time. Although a lot of bookstores will not do events at that time of year because they just don't have time. They're trying to get product out. They don't really want to do an event. However, you could do a signing. That's one time I tell authors, a straight signing as opposed to an actual event would be that kind of timeline when people are rushing and they're very, very busy doing that kind of thing.
I'm originally from Vancouver, so I do launches in LA and Vancouver. And I think that kind of looks cool on social media. It's really nothing. I'm just going home to But what I do is I try to make it entertaining. I mean, you invite people out, you give them some wine and cheese and crackers, and then you read a bit from the book. But to me, okay, everybody does that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So me being me, I have to do something else, a little extra. So when I launched Moose's Law, I took an old bouncer story and I told this story, which part of it made it into the book, and I completely embellished and sorry, I'm trying not to swear, fabricated, and made it fun, So, I mean, because normally you book a room or a bookstore or a library for 2 hours, and people walk around and then you sign and all that stuff. So I don't want to make them feel like they're, oh, God, this is so long. But I want to give them something if they're coming all the way out. I don't want to, here's your book, here's my signature, and I'll get out of here. So the big crescendo, like I said, came out on the 4th, and I'm doing a launch at a wine store. At a wine bar. So the wine's right there. And I have a little something up. I have a story, but I'll also bring in a snare drum and do a little something. So people are going to get entertained a little bit. I mean, Lou Crasher, my protagonist, is a drummer turned amateur PI. So bring the drum in there, try to get a laugh, and then I'll read and sign and that stuff. And same thing goes for Vancouver. Yeah, making it interesting, like I said earlier, do something different. I had a good friend, a good writer too, Sarah Chen, and she came out to both of my LA launches. And she, after the second one, she said, I love your launches because they're like nobody else's. They're always different, and I don't know what to expect. Hopefully that translates to book sales, but at least coming from music, I feel like I should entertain you in addition to the book. And as far as finding venues, it kind of comes down to budget. Like, we're going to do this in a wine bar. In Vancouver, I've done the bar thing during Christmas. That was a great one because people are off work, Christmas spirit, and they don't feel bad about having a glass of wine in the afternoon. And then everybody's up, and you can just sell a bunch of books, but you got to pay for that. And you don't really. So as far as profit, even if you sell 50 or 60 books, you still have to pay for that venue. You can go to a bookstore. You don't have to pay, but they take a percentage. And most of them they take 40%, and everyone tells me it's the standard, but it infuriates me. It infuriates me that I wrote the book, paid for the editing, did all this stuff, had to wait a year, and you're taking almost half of it because you have a brick and mortar building. Maybe I've burnt some bridges just saying that, but I think 40% is high. But I've done a couple of bookstores, teeny tiny ones, where they only took 10, and that was cool. And in those ones, it's harder to really get people to want to hang around. Well, they'll go up and down the aisles, but I kind of want people to hang out and meet people they don't know. That's what I like. It's like it's a party where there's also a book being released. So as my budget goes up and I sell a bunch of books, my launches are going to get big.
Oh my gosh, this book launch was so much fun. It was at a pub. It had to be at a pub. In my books, my main character, Lord Langsford, he goes to pubs. And what's fun is these pubs still exist. The Lion and Boar, which is now just named the Lion, is up in Earl's Cone in Essex, north of London. And the Lamb Tavern is in Leadenhall Market, which was a very pivotal location in a book. The Lamb Tavern still exists in Leadenhall Market in London. So I go to the Robin Hood pub frequently for lunch and meet friends there. And I was having lunch with another author for him, and she said, A.E., you should have your book launch here. And I went, brilliant, absolutely outstanding. And so I decided that was where we were going to do the launch. I worked with the pub owner for about 4 or 5 weeks, and we named a couple of drinks after Lord Langsford, which was great fun. I was able to drink quite a few shandies myself, which is beer and lemonade. I loved it. And we had these huge bowls of trifle, which is a British dessert. It's fruit and jello and custard and whipped cream, all laced with sherry. It was absolutely delicious. So many people showed up. I was just nonplussed. We had, as a public event, so people that were already in the pub and in the restaurant joined in. What was supposed to be a 2-hour event ended up being a 5.5-hour one. So yes, we had a grand time. I talked, I signed, we partied. The icing on the cake was that there is a British store next door called the Friar Tuck Shop, SHOPPE, and now they carry all my titles. It's just so much fun. I never know what adventures my very own books are going to take me on. So that was great fun, and people actually, it's only been a few weeks, and they're still sort of talking about it. We had a good time. Well, I used social media a lot. I mailed out the invitations to people. I did an email blast to just about everybody, and it was open to all. And I belonged to quite a few writers groups, and so when I would go there, I would let them know that and announce it. And it was announced in different newsletters within these groups as well. So I just sort of broadcast it all out to the world. And it's interesting too because not everybody is local. And I got a lot of response like, oh, I'd love to come, but I live in New York. But a lot of people that I didn't really think that, driving in Southern California isn't easy. And so some people, they drove quite a ways to get there. So, I was really thrilled to see them. And that made it even more special for me anyway.
I did time the release of the book for Christmas. Actually, the official release date was October 14th. Because I wanted to give it a good 2 months before Christmas. And fall season, as many of you know, is the big book buying season. You want a book to launch in the fall, leading up to Christmas. And so also because this was self-published, I self-published this again for a similar reason to the third book. I could have sold it with a traditional publisher, but I just felt the urge to get it out that Christmas. So, yes, as far as marketing, I did a lot of work before the October 14th release. And that's what I want to encourage the writers to do who are listening to this is you really have to start your promotional work at least 6 months before the book comes out. And I'm sure many of the other authors on this site will validate that, if not a year. Getting gigs together and on the schedule where you can promote the book. For example, I did lots of book signings at gift stores because I knew that gift stores, boutique shops would be interested. Another place I hit were antique stores because the book is centered around vintage ornaments and lots of vintage ornaments are sold there. So I was very successful in local antique stores around the Atlanta area. I mean, it's sold more there than in the gift boutiques. So what I would encourage your writers to do is think out of the box and think about who would buy this book. And if I had had more time, because I was still very focused on getting the book out, and everybody I'm sure wishes they could do more promotion, but if I had more time, I would have even done more of that. I would have reached out to cities on the periphery. There's a lot of driving around, there's a lot of signing books at gift stores, there's a lot of what we call pounding the pavement, because if you're self-publishing, you have to do your own marketing. You have to go to the bookstore and give your pitch and offer them a free book. And the way to do it is this. Make sure you have that 30-second pitch. Have it perfect, because that's all any manager of a store will give you, any buyer. And back to your other question, Debbie Reynolds helped me because her name was on that. That absolutely helped me. Also, if you're already published, that helps you because they can see your work. But if you're just starting out, if it's your first book, and I know many authors who do this, have that pitch just perfect. And more often than not, they'll try you out. They love boutiques and gift stores love author signings. So it's a lot of pounding the pavement. Sometimes you'll sit and sell in an evening at a gift store 2 books. Sometimes you'll sell 20. Sometimes you'll go to an art and wine festival and sell 25 books, and sometimes you'll sell none. But that's part of the whole being an author. It's not just about writing. You're doing all your own promotion.
When it comes to actually your book launch, I personally love book launch events that take place in real life, in a real venue, as opposed to book launch events like doing a Facebook launch or that kind of stuff. Of course, one doesn't exclude the other, but I find the real life book launch events so much better for various reasons. So first of all, with such an event, you get a chance to actually meet your readers. You get a chance to interact with people like in a life-to-life situation, and we all know that the connections we forge with people when we meet those people and get a chance to talk to them are sometimes stronger than those we can make in the online environment. So that would be one reason. The other one is that you can actually use all this content for your social media channels. So you will have a lot of content for that, for your author platform. You can advertise and promote your book launch on your social media channels beforehand, and then you will have more content after the book launch is over. Another thing that's also important is the fact that you can also get, when you have this event, you can identify maybe brands or, some small businesses in your area who would love to be associated with your event because there is something common between your book theme and their brand or their business. And you could even get a sponsor to help you, to cover the costs for the book launch. And they would probably bring in their customers, so you will get more exposure for your book. And, maybe get some extra revenue from these people. So it happened to me for the launch of my book, Four Doors and Other Stories. Again, another reason to think about this option of hosting a book launch event in real life, in a real venue, is that it is also a great opportunity to get some media exposure. When I did my book launch, I had 3 national TV stations coming over and interviewing me and the other people involved, and I had all these stories running on national TV. So that was a plus. And besides, it's also an opportunity for you to use your creativity in a different way, because a book launch event doesn't have to be boring, doesn't have to be ordinary. The more extraordinary it is, the better, because then people will be excited and they will share it on their social media channels as well, and they will talk to their friends about it. So more word of mouth for you. And so you can use your creativity to bring your book to life in a very unique and special way. So you don't need to go there and just read a few excerpts from your book. You can pair up with other artists and maybe actors who can, play a scene of your book and bring it to life. There are many, many ways in which you can, use your book content and build a book launch around it. So I would say these are, and it's fun, it's going to be really fun for you, and you're going to feel like, oh, I feel like I'm a rock star. I'm here and I'm signing all these autographs, and everybody is excited and everybody loves it.
One of the things that an author can do to help with their book launch, especially if they're a debut author and they have a brand new website and blog, is to do a virtual tour that launches on the book's release date. This is really good, especially if the book is in pre-order status prior to when you launch, because in essence, on that day, on your release day, if you have those two things coming in together, you have created an ad hoc bestseller campaign. So you have a shot at becoming a subcategory bestseller coming out on release date. So that's a really great strategy, especially for a new author.